Okay, now we will talk about that final goal characteristic of interest, which is abstraction. So goals can be either distal or proximal. Um, this can also just be stated as close versus far away in time or space. And this correlates highly with abstractness versus the opposite of abstractness being concrete. And so distal goals are typically more abstract. These are more broad goals that are not tied to a specific situation and are more ill-defined. So for an example, we can have a goal of I'm going to get my degree. That's a very distal and abstract goal. Getting a little bit less distal and a little bit more concrete would be, okay, I'm going to pass this class. And then an example of a goal that would be very proximal and concrete would be something that maybe you're doing right now, maybe not, but maybe is, oh, I need to write some things down. And with this, just a basic chart here showing that there's kind of a hierarchical structure to this and to how we think about goals. And so we can think about this in a couple ways. So when we think about how do we go about this goal, we go from top to bottom. So if my goal is I want to get my degree, how am I going to do that? I need to pass my class to get this degree, and I need to write things down in order to pass this class to get that degree. And we see the opposite when we're talking about why, right? So we can, when we're talking about why, we can go from bottom to top here, where it might be something along the lines of, oh, I need a pen to write things down. I need to write things down in order to pass this class. I need to pass this class in order to get my degree. Why do I want to get my degree? Because this will help me with my career pursuit or whatever that might be. So how we think about goals here is dependent on some things like task difficulty. So let's say that we are, say, riding a bike and you're just kind of riding around, enjoying the day. You might think about the goal of riding a bike here in terms of, okay, why am I doing this? I'm doing this to just go about my day and enjoy the nice weather and enjoy my time outside. Versus if you're riding a bike and you get to a big hill, that becomes then a lot more difficult, right? And at that point, you have to, or it's beneficial to start thinking about goals on a more concrete level. So it changes from why am I doing this? Because I like mountain biking to, oh, shoot, I need to make it up this hill. So I need to pedal. Maybe I need to change the gear. I need to do these small concrete things in order to, reach the more proximal goal of getting to the top of this hill. And so this just demonstrates an example of the point being made on the last slide. So getting at dealing with difficulty here, participants were surveyed. They were asked about some various questions similarly to this, like say you're gonna ride a bike or whatever. How would you likely think about this? What's your thought process? Trying to get at whether certain individuals think about goals more abstractly or concretely for certain tasks. And then they had participants do a little speech time. So they told participants, okay, there's an audience over here. You're going to go and present some information to them. And what was manipulated with the speech was whether or not the audience could be easily persuaded by what the participant was saying, or in other words, whether the audience shared their opinion or not. So we see that in the easy audience here, or the hard art audience that was not already thinking the same way. It'd be more difficult to switch their viewpoint. And we also have the high level or more abstract here versus low level, more concrete. And results wise, we have the anxiety of speech disfluency. So like the ums, ahs, happens to everybody. We also, I just did it. We have anxiety, we have persuasion failure, and we have performance dissatisfaction. So we see that for an easy audience, right? Those with more of the high level of thinking or the more abstract thinking showed less speech disfluency, less anxiety, less feelings of persuasion and failure, and less performance dissatisfaction when presenting to the easy audience, right? Versus we see an interaction here, so the exact opposite for those with more low level types of thinking. They performed better overall, so they had less speech disfluency, they had less anxiety, they had less persuasion failure, and they had less performance dissatisfaction after presenting to a hard audience relative to an easy audience. So just getting at here that difficulty influences what what level of abstraction we typically use when thinking about goals. And it also shows, this study particularly shows that there is a benefit to thinking more concretely for harder tasks and more abstractly for easier tasks. We also see some implications for self-control. So goal thought processes, abstraction level, proximity influence our levels of self-control. And so in this study, participants were asked, and they started doing this task. They did it once first. Basically, it's just something that you squeeze and it's relatively hard to squeeze. And you're just trying to do it for as long as you possibly can. And so that takes self-control, right? Because after, it might be easy at first, but after a certain amount of time, it certainly becomes uncomfortable, and therefore it takes self-control. And then, so they did that once. And then before the second time doing this, participants were asked either how or why do I maintain my health? And what was found was that those who entered this in the why fashion, right? Why do I maintain my health? So this abstract thinking versus the lower level how and concrete thinking. So those with the more abstract had more self-control in this task the second time relative to those who answered the how, or then were thinking more concretely about how do I do this. And the idea behind why this occurs is that when we think about why, right, we are reminding ourselves literally why why are we doing something? What's the point? Why am I doing this? And that can certainly be motivating in instances or goals where we need self-control. And further emphasizing the point made on the last slide, construal level influences goal consistent behavior, specifically for long-term goals here. So in this study, participants who were on a diet completed a version of the IAT, which was just getting at measuring how much we associate one thing with another. So here, the associations were between apple versus candy and good versus bad. So essentially on the diet, it should be the association that's correct here would be apple good, candy bad, right? Although for those not on a diet, it certainly could be switched. But what we see is that the higher level of construal, or that more abstract, getting to more of the why thinking, led to more of those correct responses. So apple good, candy bad associations, and reduced guessing on this IAT. So overall, the high level of construal or abstract thinking helps with things like self-control, long-term goals, right? If we're trying something that's going to take a while, like getting a degree that might feel like it takes forever while you're doing it, reminding yourself or thinking about that goal in terms of why am I doing this can definitely be motivating and can help avoid various temptations that consistently occur when we are pursuing long-term goals. Finally, we will talk more in depth about feedback in general in the next video, but just want to point out that these tote loops, or the test operate, test exit, negative feedback loops that we've talked about in the past, can also be seen as being nested in this hierarchical structure. And so we can have, more of a concrete goal of shoveling the snow, and while I have a comparator of, oh no, sidewalks aren't completely empty of snow, need to keep doing this. So shovel the snow, check, compare until we think we've done a sufficient job with clearing off the snow, and then we can be done with that goal. We feel good about that. Additionally, once we've done that, we might also have a bit more of an abstract goal of being kind. And once we shovel off the snow, maybe that's a reasoning behind why we were shoveling the snow in the first place, right? Was to be kind. So that might satisfy this other goal of being kind, which might get at also satisfying an even more abstract goal of trying to be our best or ideal selves. So certainly for both be kind and being our best selves, more actions might be needed than just shoveling off the snow. But this initial concrete goal, if I need to shovel the snow, could certainly then play a role in these more abstract goals. And so that's it. We'll get into feedback effects in the next video.